the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, where we discuss all things crypto related. Your host, Kieran Ryan.
Investing in fine wines is not new, but what is new is tokenizing wine investments to make them easier to buy and sell, even for those with small amounts of money. South African startup Mezzo Wines has broken new ground with a tokenized wine investment. Wines are regarded as a viable alternative asset class, delivering non-correlated returns to investors over time. The historical returns are inflation-beating, varying between 8 and 12% a year over the last 5 decades. It's a market full of challenge for the private collector or investor lacking knowledge of the intricacies of selecting blue-chip products that will appreciate in value. There's growing global demand for this type of investment, giving rise to the creation of a number of indices by Livix that monitor different geographic areas, such as the California 50 Index, the Burgundy 150 Index, and that's up over 160% over the last decade. Well, we're joined now by Sipho Mwanza, co-founder and CEO of Mezzo Wines, to find out a little bit more about this. Hi, Sipho. Thanks very much for joining us. You've got a background in accounting, and that's a rather interesting background for a wine investor. But I'm particularly interested about Mezzo Wines, how you came around to this, and also the tokenization aspect. So give us a little bit of the background and how you got started in this.
Hello, Kieran. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to talk to you and your viewers. Hello, my name is Sipho Mwanza, and how I actually got to investing, my story is pretty unique and different from the rest. It's unheard of. So as many people who probably will relate to me, most people don't know what they want to do growing up with their lives. And I would say I did fall under that category. I didn't know what I want to do in my life. I felt really lost until I gave my life to Jesus Christ, and then order was restored in my life. Ever since that day, I did feel a lean on capital markets, as I did see that most capital markets, there's a certain degree of unfairness to it, where access is only valid for the wealthy few, and retail investors who actually do need access to these tools cannot get access to these tools. And after seeing that gap, I thought to myself, someone needs to do something about it. And that's how I thought to myself, I need to stand in the gap for wine, because for wine is such a great asset to democratize. It's because it's a high quality asset, and I thought to myself, we need to do something for this asset, and that's how I stumbled upon tokenization, as I saw the capabilities of blockchain technology. So tokenization, for those who don't know, is the process of converting ownership from curated real-world assets into digital tokens or digital shares. Each token represents a fractional ownership stake of the real-world asset. We're pretty much transferring the ownership from the real-world asset to the blockchain. And that's how blockchain really helped us into leveraging it, into bringing this vision to fruition.
Okay, so if you're tokenizing wine investments, and of course, this is becoming fairly popular around the world. There's a group in London that we've covered in Moneyweb before called ONO. I think it's OENO. They offer not a tokenized wine investment, but you can actually buy wines and you can consume them. And from what I recall, about 10% of the wines that they have on stock there are consumed every year. So, it's the case of people getting a little bit too fond of the asset they're investing in. But I think when we're talking about tokenization here, you're going to have a secondary market, surely. You're going to have a place where people can buy and sell these tokens. And I'm sure that raises regulatory issues as well. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so first we have to let people know the position of fine wine itself as an asset class. So fine wine, in its nature, it's an illiquid asset. It's hard to sell, since we are dealing with the 1% of wines in the world, the rarest wines in the world. So it's really hard to find buyers and sellers. But that was one of the advantages of leveraging blockchain technology, as since we're converting the ownership from the real world asset into the chain, we can create liquidity for the tokens in our secondary market, which we are planning on having on our platform. It does raise it is hard on the regulation side, but we are in South Africa. South Africa, it's actually stepping up on the regulatory side. There are clear guidelines, and for crypto startups, now they can actually register and get licenses with the FSCA, which makes it a lot easier to actually work under those guidelines and to be able to offer this under a regulated environment, which brings transparency and trust for the end user.
So are you licensed, or are you in the process of applying for what would it be, a CASP license, a crypto asset service provider license?
We are in the process of applying for a CASP license. We are not licensed yet, but we are definitely working towards it.
Okay. Now, your website says you want to make wine investment accessible to a wider market. You mentioned the word democratization of the wine market. How are you going about that? So your focus is going to be on the 1% of very specialized wines, but you want to bring that to a broader market. Explain how that's going to work.
A great question, Kieran. So fine wine historically has been reserved for the wealthy few due to a multitude of reasons, such as significant entry costs, expertise level needed to navigate the market, and limited market transparency. And us at Mezzo, we are changing that by through tokenization. Tokenization allows us to offer fractional ownership to curated collections instead of individuals buying whole cases of bottles. With tokenization, it drastically lowers the cost barrier. And we are also doing that through data-driven insights because most retail investors do not have access to third-party services like LiveX. So we plan on leveraging those third parties businesses platforms to give data-driven insights for our users. So meaning that our users do not need to be wine specialists to operate in this market. And we are building a digital streamlined platform. We want the process of investing to be easy and seamless, bringing simplicity to this traditionally complex market.
Now, are you going to be focusing on South African wines? Are you going to broaden your scope and look at the entire wine market, the Burgundies and the Californian wines and so on? Presumably, that is where the real investment opportunities lie.
Yes, Kieran, because the most important thing about wine investing is a secondary market presence. So we will be focusing on investment regions around the world, especially in Europe, like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Piedmont, and Tuscany, and Napa Valley. But we do want to have a presence with South African wines, because what we notice with users through content creation is that they want to focus on homegrown wines. And South Africa does have wines that do appreciate in value. So we want to focus with the regions that are well known, but we also will focus on South African wines too.
Right, the tokens that you're going to be issuing, presumably they will go up and down in price like any stock would do. How will the token price be set? Is it going to be purely supply and demand? Or are you going to be operating like a secondary market, which will be maybe tied to one of these indices that we mentioned before, the LiveX indices, Burgundy, California, and so on?
So the token prices will be tied to the market value of the underlying asset. We will periodically assess the value of the wines, and we are going to value the wines using reliable sources such as LiveX and Wine Searcher. We are going to aggregate the data as a platform itself, where we're going to make sure we bring the transparency to the market for the users. But we will be the prices will be set by the value of the underlying asset. And as we periodically assess the market, we will update the token prices as the value changes, because the prices of fine wine are driven by so many factors that change. It can be the imbalance between demand and supply. It is provenance, critic scores, macroeconomic influences. So yeah, there's a lot of factors that do drive the prices of fine wine up and down, and we will periodically assess the market and make sure that the valuation of the token prices are as transparent and up to date as possible.
I mean, it might be interesting for people to know what is driving these wine prices. What is interesting about it is that they don't seem to be correlated to financial markets. So when we had the drop in the markets in 2020, the COVID crash, wines didn't particularly respond to that, nor did that happen in 2008. So there seems to be a fairly robust demand throughout the financial cycles for wines. Maybe explain what's the reason for that.
Yeah, great question, Kieran. So the reason for why fine wine has a low correlation to the traditional markets is because the factors that drive fine wine prices are different to the ones of traditional markets. Since fine wine is a tangible asset, factors like an imbalance between demand and supply will drive the prices. And while in public market asset classes, prices will be driven by revenue. So with fine wine, it's unique in that sense where supply is limited, as there's only so much wine you can produce in a certain size, a land of a certain size. And the demand for fine wine, since it's a tangible asset, will always be there, and that always drives prices. So does critic scores and provenance. Those factors do drive the prices of fine wine. And those drivers are very different to public market drivers, and that's why I believe fine wine is such a unique asset class to public market assets, and that's why I do believe fine wine is a viable asset for a diversified portfolio.
Where does the name Meza come from?
Yeah, so Meza is a direct closer translation for neighbor. We wanted a name that will encapsulate what our company stands for, which is community. We are here to serve our communities and bring access to tools that can bring financial freedom to our communities. That's why we chose and went for Meza, because we wanted people to feel a sense of community when they're actually associating our brand and using our platform.
It sounds like you may be planning to tokenize other real-world assets, since your mission seems to be to democratize and improve financial inclusion. Is that the case? You'd be looking at other real-world assets that could be tokenized?
Yes, definitely, Kieran. That is in the pipeline. We definitely do want to democratize access to all kinds of private market assets, such as whiskey, art, and handbags and all other esoteric asset classes, because we do believe that so many retail investors have been shut out from private markets for such a long time, and they've been missing out on opportunities to get the returns that have been good for the wealthy few for such a long time. And we do believe that all these asset classes have a potential and are great for in a place for a diversified portfolio for investors.
Final question. What about the logistics of buying, storing, and insuring wine? There's quite a lot of costs which come with that. Who takes care of that? How's that going to work?
Yeah, so we are working with our partners. They're called WineFi. They are a company in the UK. So we're planning on leveraging their resources, as they are partnering with a company called Coterri Holdings, which has vaults and storage that side, and resources for insurance. So we are planning on working and leveraging their resources to make sure that we are cutting costs as much as we can and ensuring that the assets, since we are custodians for these physical assets, are taken care of for our users. So that's how we are planning on making sure that these assets are well taken care of in terms of insurance and in terms of storage.
It's a fascinating idea. We wish you the very best of luck with it. Also, your incorporation of tokens and blockchain, I think, is going to be an interesting model that will no doubt be followed by others. So, Sipa Mwanza, CEO of Meza Wines, thanks very much for joining us on the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast.
Thank you so much, Kieran, for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, hosted by Kieran Ryan. To listen to our other podcasts, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates.